Hello, everyone, and welcome to this We Create EDU episode. We are not doing channel reviews anymore. We went through our list of people, so now we're moving on to how do we actually go and do the thing. And today I have Chelsea with me, and we're going to be talking about organization and productivity. And then next month we're going to be talking about research with Peter from Go Verb Renown, because that's like what Peter does. So he's going to let us know tips for researching, and after that, alliterative is going to help us with writing. But please, none of us are real experts on any of these things, maybe Peter and alliterative, but like mostly we're all trying to figure this out together. So if you guys have any tips or suggestions, you can tell us in the chat now or in the comments later. Do you have more to add to that?
No, I was just going to say, if anybody has any tips, or if you, while we're talking about organization, if you have different ways that you collate things or whatever, please let us know, because I'm always looking for new ways to organize things and new, more efficient ways to get things done. So yes, please talk to us, everybody.
So we have a long list of things that we're kind of going to go through today, like how to organize things, how to back things up, task and project managers, time trackers, so you know where your time's all going, or how to get yourself kickstarted to like sit down and actually do the thing. Things that might be used for automation, other like researchy tools, ways to collaborate, and just like general social media dashboard automation things. We're not going to dive too deeply on any of these. It's kind of just like glossing over all of them so you know like what things exist and are out there. Because we find that people bring up new things all the time and everyone's like, oh my gosh, can I have a link to whatever that is? And even if we've mentioned it like 1,000 times, there's always that one more person that's like, I've never heard of that. So that's what we're going to go over today.
Or people like me who are like, oh yeah, we talked about that like a year ago. I forgot to implement that into my workflow. So let's do that now. What's that name again?
Exactly.
That is what I do all the time.
So we're going to be watching the chat. So if you guys have tips or suggestions, feel free to add them in. And the first thing on our list was how we organize our clips. Do you want me to go over my method first, or do you want to talk about how you do it?
Yeah, well, I think your method is probably more organized than mine, just because you're more organized as a person than I usually am. Like I am very rudimentary most of the time in how I organize my clips. I, basically just have video clips, audio clips, photos, those kind of things. But I don't like folder and then subfolder into like this date or whichever, which I probably should do if I have different, B-roll and stuff like that. But right now it's very like, here's all the video clips I have for this project, done. Here's all the, music clips. Here's all the audio clips or whatever. And it's very just kind of straightforward. And I could probably do it better. So if anybody has any ideas, or if you have ideas, let me know how I could do it better. But it works okay.
Yeah, I used to just throw it all in one folder, and that's a terrible idea. I was just like, this is the name of the video, and it just goes in that folder. But now I have a little bit more structure, and I'm trying to go back through and sort old things because I reuse things, or I'm trying to get any, like sometimes I just take general footage as like B-roll. So I'm trying to incorporate that too. So I have like Adobe files is a folder, video, which is broken in A-roll, B-roll, and sometimes by, it sounds weird, by camera, like if Tim has a camera, or if I have one, or positions or whatever. Audio is separate because we usually try and record at least 2 audio things. Assets in general, so if I'm getting like pictures or something off the web. Thumbnails is usually one because it's its own file, and then like 10 revisions.
Right.
And then I'm trying to integrate, like if you have a Mac, you can do tags, and then you can do smart folders with that. Have you ever used smart folders?
I haven't used smart folders, but I do use tags quite a bit, actually.
So do you want to talk about your tagging system at all?
My tagging system is mostly per month. Like if I have these this project is happening, I have 3 videos that I want to do in November. So they're all the orange tag right now, and then I'll have, 3 or 4 things that I want to do in December. So they're all the purple tag or whatever it is, and then I put the scripts, the, audio clips, video clips, whatever, are all tagged with those colors.
Yeah. that's a good tagging system. I'm just starting one. That's why I asked, because I don't
Oh yeah.
have one
Okay.
yet.
Yeah, I like the tags more than, I don't know. I mean, I guess I folder things too, but
Yeah.
I think tags work relatively nicely.
Yeah. One of the reasons I like that I want to embrace the tagging system, especially for like B-roll kind of footage, is
Mhm.
that way if I have like 80 projects, they can all have, have their videos in their own folder. But if I do
Mhm.
B-roll tag and then do a smart folder that looks for maybe that tag and something else, a date range or something, then I can find
Mhm.
what like all the B-roll could be in one spot from
Yeah,
all the
that's a good idea.
separate projects.
Yeah.
I also break down, I put them by year and then or by
Mhm.
series. So that's just basic how I do mine. I don't think the chat has any suggestions for folder organization.
No.
That
Hello, chat.
that was a good place to start.
Yeah, you're not kidding about the 10 revisions for thumbnails too. Like that's the worst. Meanwhile, like there's so much new information about thumbnails too, supposedly, that sometimes, text is good and then text is bad, and then pictures of your face are good and then pictures of your face are bad, and all of those
Mhm.
things. And I've been trying to kind of experiment with, having color themes or having block text instead of just text over my picture or whatever. And I haven't seen any sort of marked bump in searchability yet. Not that I have 1,000 videos to switch it all over and see if that is, good A/B testing. Um, but who knows? It seems like it keeps changing. Like text was good on your thumbnails 3 months ago, and now text is maybe not so good. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's usually 4 or 5 at least different versions of thumbnails.
Yep. Unfortunately. And then if you go back through and change like your whole design, then you gotta
Mm-hmm.
pull it all out again. Oh, and a new thing I'm trying to be more like succinct like in sync over everything. So now my folder structure on my computer is mirrors like what I have in Google Drive, and mirrors like my notebooks and
Mm.
Evernote and stuff like that. Because before it was just like a mishmash. So I'm
Right.
trying to come up with like some kind of folder naming and tag system.
That's
Um,
smart.
do you have any backup system for all your stuff?
I mean, I externally hard drive everything. Because I had, I don't know what it was, like 6 months ish ago, maybe an entire like computer total like failure, which was very scary and sad. But thank goodness I periodically timeline backup everything onto
Mhm.
one certain hard drive, and then I use a separate external hard drive to do all the like daily editing and daily whatever. So most of the time that just gets um, backed up there. And I will shill because not because they're sponsored, but because I love them. These rugged external hard drives are my favorite. I have a couple that don't have this meshy stuff on them, but this stuff is awesome because it protects it, and it just makes me feel better throwing it in my bag. And it seems to be standing up pretty well. Like this I've had for maybe a year or two, and it's great. It goes in my bag almost every day when I walk around the neighborhood and take the bus and whatever, and it's great.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I
So
definitely.
rugged, if you want to sponsor me.
Yeah, my little one has a dent in it because it wasn't as rugged.
Right?
But
So that's why I feel like it's super worth it to have the extra little like meshy stuff.
I do timeline or yeah, time machine backup or whatever.
Mm.
And then I have Backblaze.
Oh yeah, I've heard a lot about Backblaze.
Yeah,
What
so
do you
the
like about it?
reason because if someone was to steal my stuff, there's like it's out in the cloud.
Okay.
Um and also if it does it in the background, and Backblaze is kind of awesome because it's I think $5 a month for unlimited, one computer
Oh
and
wow,
as many hard drives as you want,
that's nice.
which is great for YouTubers because I have like 4 terabytes of video,
Right.
which would cost a bajillion Dropbox dollars.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
Um,
I don't use Dropbox that much anymore because you have to pay $1 bajillion for
yeah,
1 terabyte.
I think, and there's other services that are good out there too, but Backblaze is the only one I know of that's that cheap, unlimited. for one computer and as many hard drives as you want.
Yeah, unlimited is amazing.
And then if something goes wrong, which happens, like I like that it backs up in the background because
Mhm.
I've had it before where an Adobe file will crash on me
Mhm.
and then I can go back to yesterday's version. So I kind of have
Oh yeah, that's
versioning
nice.
going on in the background
Right.
because of that too. Or it'll just delete something or corrupt something or whatever, and it has 30-day history for the most part.
Oh,
I
that's
think
nice.
as long as you have it hooked up, it has
Mhm.
like 30-day history. So there have been a couple times where Adobe has done something terrible or some other program, and I've gone back and been able to find it.
Right, so you don't lose the entire thing, which is the worst.
The chat has things
I was
that
just
they've
noticing.
cut up. Do you want to read some of them?
Um, I was in the middle of reading Avon's comment. They're just talking about organization as modes. I can see
He's
transcripts on Dropbox. Lots of people use Dropbox and Backblaze.
I kind of back up
External
my
hard drives.
scripts on Dropbox, sort of, because I use Scrivener. So Scrivener syncs via Dropbox to iOS, so there's a backup
Okay.
automatically on there. But then I also put, like, to show them to Tim, I put them on Drive.
So what's the difference between Scrivener and Evernote? Because I know you use both of those.
Scrivener is for writing, and Evernote is more like kind of data collection kind of thing. You can write in Evernote too.
Oh, right. Okay.
But in Scrivener, it's easier for me because it uses a corkboard that has little index cards on the side. So I put on that like what the scene's going to be, and I also color code by like animation, A roll, B roll, and then it still has it looks like a Word document on one side where the whole script is, and then on the sidebar there's just all those index cards, so I can kind of match up like what's going to be seen along with the text, which helps me a lot more when I have so much B-roll and animations.
Yeah, and when you have animations and stuff, I can see how that would be helpful.
Alliterative uses Scrivener too, and they love it.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I have not tried the new team project function in Adobe. I've been wondering about that. Adobe, I know you use Final Cut, right? Yeah, but Adobe has team stuff, and now you can share libraries, you can share assets, and I believe they even have it so you can be working on things kind of at the same time. And they have a lot more commenting features on there too. So if you have an editor and an animator, when you're in After Effects, you can make these essential graphic things. So you can kind of pretty much make an animated template for either a lower third or your text on your side or just like any kind of graphic. And then there are certain key elements that you can put in. Like, I want to change this color, or you can change the text or whatever. It shows you the things that will be changeable. And then that would be the animator's job. And they make these like templates. And then you can open up Essential Graphics panel over in Premiere, and that person that doesn't know anything about motion graphics can pull that in and change the text. They can change the color, that kind of thing. And then the animator could also have little like comments like, these are what all these things mean, and this is how you can change them.
That's freaking cool.
So they're trying to do a lot more like collaborative functions within Adobe, which also makes it easier for, we're talking organization and stuff, is you have these general templates that you can have.
Yeah, I think I really need to start learning more about Adobe. I know a little bit. I tried to start learning Premiere Pro, but it just because I was trying to get stuff put out for a couple weeks, like, you know, get things moving. I was like, I just want to do the things that I know the shortcuts for and get this done, you know?
Yeah.
But even sharing files too with people who use Premiere Pro is harder when you use Final Cut because both of them don't sync together. So you have to go through like a third party to recode the video or whatever. So it goes to Premiere and it's just a hassle. So I might just have to start using Adobe more. I mean, I already use Photoshop and I've been trying to learn After Effects, so might be time.
Do you guys, in the chat, do you guys use the team project function? Have you tried it? Let us know what you think.
Yeah, that sounds like an awesome function if they're really going to do that. Speaking of team project management.
Yeah. So I can share my screen. I'll do this briefly because I think maybe these people that are here might do some of this stuff. So
Nice.
project management versus task management. We use Asana for like project management stuff, but a lot of people use Trello. So I'm just going to quickly show them. I'm not going to dive too deeply into any of them. Okay. So this is actually TweetDeck, but this is what our Asana looks like. So we do it in sprints. This way we know like what videos to work on. So this is the year view. So these are thumbnails, not the real thumbnails, obviously, but these are the videos and projects we're working on for every month. So that way, if we were like, oh yeah, we should do this video, we can look at that month and be like, oh man, we have so much already. And then we break it up into probably 3 months looking ahead. And then in the little sprint board, we know what projects we're working on. So December is probably a better view. So there's 3 projects over here. And then we have what's in our backlog, what's going to be next in our queue, then in progress review, and what's on hold. And then the reason we like Asana is we can have these sprint boards, but then they can link directly back to the actual project. I think it's this one. Yeah, so then this lists out the project right there. You can do the same kind of thing in Trello. I made a Trello board earlier today to show you guys, so you can have your backlog, queue, in work, waiting, and all that. And then you can bring it up, and there's these checklists you can put inside. So if you're going to do your pre-production, and you can see like what's going on. And for both of them, you can assign dates and people and have attachments and all that stuff. But I can't really have a big project view and a sprint for like the dates and all the same way. Like I can't have the year one. So that's why I don't like Trello. But yeah, that's my basic like project management if people wanted to look for doing boards and sprints and stuff like that. And then I think I've showed this before. As for Task Manager, I don't know if you can see. Yeah, it's not going to show that. But I use OmniFocus, and I've shared that checklist before. Sometimes it's just nice to have like a checklist of these are the things you do. And I think in the show notes I wrote Checklist Manifesto because I know that's a book that a lot of people cite. This doctor wrote how much better procedures got once they had checklists. So even if you've done it 1,000 times, it's a nice thing to have.
That's interesting. And it's called Checklist Manifesto?
Yeah. I think it might be very boring, but I'm not sure. I haven't read it, but I've heard it suggested like 100 times. It's one of those.
Right. I mean, that makes sense. Because it's so easy to skip over, little things here and there.
And there's in the resources on our drive, a bunch of people did share their checklist if people want to go through there. So I won't go through all the things I have. Do you have a project manager or task manager you want to talk about?
No, I don't really use those. I probably should, but since I'm just a one-person team, I kind of try and keep, what I'm working on, it's mostly just like up on my computer. So I usually have, since I have an Apple, I have different, I don't know if Windows computers do it too, but you can do different windows, and like swipe over and have something happening here, swipe over, have something happening here. So I usually have like, Photoshop over here, and then Final Cut up on a different window, and then a script over on a different window, and then a whatever on a different window, So it's probably more chaos than it needs to be. But since I'm just a one-person operation, I usually have, things just up on my computer and on my hard drive. And I do use my phone a lot, actually, not with any sort of apps or anything that are organizational, but I'll take notes and have those things in lists and do that. I'm not as professional as I could be, I suppose.
Yeah, in the chat saying they have checklists, but they don't always use them all the time. I don't either. I'm like, I don't have time for checklists a lot of times, but when I'm good, I use them. And when we're making decisions is usually when we have the board up, like when we get really excited and we're like, we should do this big project. And then we're like, what? No, go back, look at the board. We already got like 5 things for that month. So
right. If you had a cloning machine, you could do that.
Maybe that's one of the projects.
Yeah, right. Secret project in collaboration with Wheezy Waiter.
Then the next thing I had was timers and pomodoros. So there's two ways to think about it. One is if you're doing a pomodoro method. Have you heard that before?
I haven't actually.
Pomodoro means, I think, tomato in Spanish. Someone's probably going to correct me. Like alliterative, who knows words.
Let's see. I'll keep watching the
I think it means tomato in, maybe it's Italian. I don't know. It means tomato in some language. But anyway, it's a method where you work for 25 minutes, you take a 5-minute break, work for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break. You do that 3 times. And then the 4th time you do a 25-minute sprint, and then you take like a 15 to a 30-minute break. But it's a way, like, if you don't want to do the thing, it's a good way to just set a little timer, and they have apps for it too, but you can just set a little timer and just be like, I'm just going to work for 25 minutes. Or you can shorten it too. If you're just like, I'll do 15 minutes and then 5-minute break. And usually just saying like, I'm just going to work for this small chunk of time and then take a break, get you into that like mode.
That's so interesting. I didn't know there was a name for that, because I usually do that just because I know myself that, like, okay, if I sit down and say I'm just going to work for 30 minutes, then I usually end up working for like an hour or two. But just like in your head being like, okay, I'm going to work for 30 minutes and then I'm going to take a little tea break or whatever is helpful to get in there. So that's good to know that there's a name for that.
And then you said,
also neurotransmission says it's not Spanish.
Yeah.
But Evan says maybe in Italian it might be golden apple, maybe?
It's tomato in something, because it's always the tomato logo.
Look it up.
But you have timers for your breaks too. So if you're like, all right, I really want to check Twitter, but like the timer goes off and then you're done.
You can't get sucked into the hole of scrolling.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's lots of focus apps out there too that will block certain websites for you, or you can do it on your phone. There's one that's like a forest, and every time you check your phone when you shouldn't, like a tree dies. And the longer you don't check, the more a tree grows, and that like helps some people. And then for other timers, there's things like Toggle, Timely, Rescue Time, Hours, things like that that you can track. Like, oh, this, like, I spend way too much time researching or on a thumbnail, or like Conjecture said before, looking for music. Like if you set a timer and you say, this is the task I'm doing. Or if you don't think you have that much, we'll remember that. Things like Timely and Rescue Time will actually track what you're doing and what websites and everything you're on, and then give you a list at the end. I never know about those because I'm like, privacy wise, like what do they keep and what they don't? So read those policies. But yeah, there are ones that will show you at the end, like, this is what you spent your time on.
That's interesting. Also, Google says that Pomodoro is tomato in Italian.
It was some language.
You're right. Some language. Oh yeah, alliterative says named after a tomato-shaped timer.
Oh.
Sure. Cool. A kitchen timer, maybe. That would be cute. Maybe the tomato explodes when you get to your time and then you're covered in tomato sauce. Maybe that's the incentive. You don't want to, you know, that like vaudeville when they throw tomatoes in the stage when you do a poor job. Maybe that's why.
Or if you don't get your work done before the timer goes off.
Right. You get covered with tomato.
They also say
maybe that's a startup. We should make an actual product like that.
We could. They say that they use Google Calendar to plan out their podcast and video schedule. That's a good way to do it
use
too.
The calendar too. Yeah, true.
Some people say they it's not flavor their day. I can't remember what the actual phrase is, but every day is a different thing that they do. So maybe it would be like writing Monday, editing Tuesday, like that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
So they know what they're doing each day. So that'd be cool if you had that on your Google Calendar.
I'm writing down flavor your day because I like that phrase. The flavor of the day today is scripting. Tastes like kumquats.
Yes, always multitasking. Yeah, Pomodoro method. I've heard a bunch of people that are doing their thesis and stuff using Pomodoro method just to try and get through it.
Oh yeah,
now
that's
that they
smart.
have like everything in front of them
Right.
when they go to write it.
So I see the next thing on the list is automation, which I know nothing about. I don't do any sort of
Yeah.
any of that.
So this is a bigger
So
one.
speak to that.
So automation I have under a broad umbrella. So 1Password is or a LastPass are the top two password managers that I've seen. Um, I used to try and remember all my password or like have like it wasn't like 1, 2, 3, 4 or anything like that, but there was a method behind my madness for like
Mhm.
each different website and how it would change, and that was insane. So now I have a password manager that has everything in it, and it just makes everything so much easier because I have like WeCreate.edu and SciJoy and like all the 7 Twitter accounts and stuff. So, and I know you have a bunch of Instagrams, so that
Mhm.
really helps me like automate that part of it.
Mhm.
And I know some people like every time the the time changes forward or backwards, then they go through and change all their passwords. I
Oh,
don't
that's an
do that.
interesting idea.
It's a good idea. I don't do that. That takes a
That's a
lot of
good idea.
time, but
Yeah.
it's very nice for me to just have them all in one place. So I don't know if anyone else uses a password manager.
Well, I know Apple has Keychain built into all of their products, so that's what I use just across my Apple products, and it seems to work decently well. And it's nice to just have it like autofill. This comes, I go to this website, and this is this password.
Yeah. Oh, and I like it too because it generates passwords for me. Like I don't have to think of them, so it just
Oh, that's
randomly
nice.
generates it. Um, Sorry, the chat has been saying a lot of things.
No, I love it. What are they saying?
Um, their podcast. Oh, she said for multitasking. Um, while there's rendering, they're watching
Oh,
this
nice.
hangout.
Awesome. Way to multitask,
Good
Evan.
multitasking.
Yay. We approve of your multitasking.
Then some people use IFTTT. I don't know. I don't remember how many T's are in it. If this, then that. Do you ever use that?
Oh, yeah. I've heard of it, but I haven't used it.
So either that or Zapier or Zapier. I've heard it said both ways. Both of them you can kind of integrate different services together. So one of the ones I use is every time that I upload a video to YouTube, it posts it automatically on Facebook because I don't really care that much about Facebook, but I want the video to go out there. Or every time I post a thing on Instagram, it posts it on my Twitter, and sometimes I forget, and that's why there's double posts. But it's better. I like it better that way because then it shows instead of sometimes when I send it straight from Instagram, it just shows the link. But when I use this service, it shows the actual image or the actual video and
Oh, yeah.
then the stuff below.
Nice.
And I know that Soliloquy uses it to check. He puts his URLs for his YouTube videos in there, and he uses it to look on Reddit, and it pings him anytime that like one of his videos comes up, and so he gets a little notification. So there's just it almost most of the social media apps you can think of it integrates with, and you can pretty much it's like if this thing happens, then do this other thing. So there's triggers and actions. So you can think of things that maybe you want to automate that way.
That's really smart.
And
That's like a good service.
I think another one I have is every time that I upload a video, it puts it into an Excel sheet and then it puts out different information. So I have just a big Excel sheet of like all my videos with the title, the URL, when it was published, that kind of thing. There's just a lot of automation things you can do for that. There's other things you can do like location-based ones that will ping you when you go somewhere. There's just a lot of things you can do with it. Does anyone in the chat use it?
Doesn't seem to, but Evan says she's heard good things about Password Manager.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah, it's to protect against hacks. Yeah, it's easier if someone had your computer and opened it, then they'd already have a keychain for everything, but then they already have your computer. But yeah. So those IFTT and Zapier are two big ones that people want to check out. For anyone that uses Windows, I've heard things about AutoHotkey that are really good. There's a video that came out recently. There's a tech channel, Linus Tech Tips. I've never watched it before, but he has a bunch of editors, and I think they put out videos every day. And this guy did a 4.5 hour video of how he edits, and I watched like an hour of it, and my mind was blown. And he has it so he writes scripts where, and he gives it out to people, and you can use it if you have Windows. But to do, like, he brings in a clip and he hits like 2 buttons and it changes it from stereo to mono and adjusts the gain and changes the color correction. He just hits 2 buttons on his keyboard and it does all that, because he's written a script that says go up to this pixel and look for this color box, and if it's a light gray then check it, and if it's dark gray then don't, and then go over here and pick this drop down menu. And like, it's insane. So if you have Windows and you edit in Premiere, let me know and I will send you a link to this guy's video, because he wrote these crazy scripts that just, you know, you program function keys on your computer and then 10 things happen like, in 4 seconds.
All by itself. Wow.
Yeah. For changing like all these different parameters. The closest thing to that for a Mac person would be Keyboard Maestro, where you can kind of program like what happens, like a sequence of events that if you're doing a repetitive task. I haven't programmed anything with that, but that's like similar. Other automator tools on the Mac are Hazel. You can write scripts to pretty easily to do certain things. Like if you were importing videos and you wanted to rename all of them, it's pretty easy to do that. Or your downloads folder, it would, if there's things you download there all the time, it would either send it somewhere or delete it or send you like a ping saying, hey, it's been 30 days and this stuff's still in your folder. So there's lots of things you can do with that. And the Automator is another one for the Mac. And I think that, does anyone else use like automation tools? I need to take a water break for a second.
Yeah, go for it. Let's see. If they don't use IFTT but keep thinking about it, have used some Twitter schedulers and Twitter bots, like Hootsuite potentially. I've used that, which has worked pretty well for me in the past. I haven't used it that much for my personal accounts, but I was doing some social media management for a company last year, and I used it quite a lot actually for scheduling tweets and scheduling. I think you can link up some Instagram posts, and you can link up your mail and stuff like that to go out through there too.
I think you can, I have Hootsuite, but I haven't used it in like 2 years. I like that you can see all of them. Like I can see Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, like I don't have to go to each specific one. And I think you can do, like you're saying, I think you do MailChimp and stuff through there too.
Yeah, I was using MailChimp in conjunction with Hootsuite. And it was kind of nice to have that board that I could be like, okay, this is what this, you know, Twitter timeline is saying, and this is what this one's saying, and this is when this is scheduled to go out, and useful.
And I used to use Buffer when I did more with We Create EDU social media, where I would go through and I'd actually use Feedly and troll a bunch of, so Feedly is an RSS reader. So I would put in a bunch of like Tube Filter and YouTube's Creator Studio newsletter and just like all these YouTube things, and I would put it into this feeder and I would go through, and then from Feedly I could put it in my buffer queue. So it's like, here's all these things that are about YouTube or educational stuff, and then you set up a schedule, and it's like every so often it sends one of these out. So you just have a queue of tweets to go out. So if you know, like if you have a topic area and you're doing research in it, and you want to tweet about that, you can do that. That was for free. For the paid version, you can set up farther away and I think have a calendar. And that's what Stepback does. He does like 6 months ahead of time, most of his tweets, because he redoes a lot of his videos. And I think it's called Recur.
Recur Post I think might be it.
Is what Sarah's always talking about, where it kind of goes back through and redishes out your videos and posts and things. TweetDeck, I think most people in the chat use TweetDeck already, but if anyone watching this later, TweetDeck's pretty good for Twitter. Especially if you have multiple accounts. That's a big problem if you're ever managing multiple accounts. Or when we had We Create EDU, and I didn't know you guys as well as I do now, and I was afraid to give you guys the passwords to everything. I was trying to make you managers for everything, and you can't do that in Twitter, but TweetDeck allows you to have managers.
Right.
Because I think I'd known you guys all for like a month.
For like a couple months, yeah.
And I was like, do you want to manage the social media? Please don't say anything terrible.
Right. Please be nice people.
And don't change the password and lock me out. I don't want to have to make a new brand.
Right. Goodness gracious, can you imagine if that had happened? Tweffer, Evan says I've never heard of that. I'm gonna have to look that up. Thanks for the tip.
What does that one do?
Tell us, what does that one do? Says it's fairly basic, but works for her.
I know we're cranking through all these things, but I know some things that, it's going to be hit or miss what applies to people. So I just wanted to give like lots of options.
Yeah.
This, do you want to go on to like research things?
Sure.
Yeah.
So
I'd in the middle, but this is my biggest issue that I've run across now. I used to have an app called RefMe, and I'm hoping the chat can help me with this problem. But it was a wonderful, glorious app. I could scan the barcodes of all the books that I use for research, and it would do the citations for it, and then it would collect it, and I could have each video was its own project. So then I just had like a list of references for all of them, and then I could send it to Evernote, and then I could just copy and paste that and put it into the bottom of my video. And then Cite This For Me or something like that took it over, and now it's like weird and dead, and I don't know. It doesn't work that well, and I don't really like Cite This For Me that much, and I've tried to search for something else, but I haven't found something equivalent. So if anyone knows how to, I know Goodreads will scan it for you. Like Goodreads will scan it and but doesn't cite it for you. It just kind of gives you like a shareable link. So that's the only equivalent that I have. So if the
research citations are the worst, right?
Yeah. So if the chat has something that I can scan all my books and make citations out of it again, that would be great.
Yeah, that's a great service. That's sad that it's not what it once was.
And I think we've talked about this before, but Alliterative uses some of the research applications that are out there. There's Zotero and Mendeley, I think, is what a lot of people use to like collect all their PDFs and stuff. I don't personally use that. I use Evernote, but I know if you're going to go research paper heavy, I believe that's two of the ones that other people use. Do you have to do much research or not? Because it's like what you do all the time, every day.
Yeah, pretty much. I do some research depending on, obviously I don't have that much kind of research-based things on my channel at the moment. I do have a couple videos that I'm planning that are going to require a little bit more, that I would like to speak to, like psychiatric professionals, healthcare provider professionals, those kind of people. But yeah, most of the things that I do are mostly like, this is my 10 years of experience raising kids, so I'm citing me. But there are some things that I've done that if I talk about articles that I've done, that I've read for research, or books that I've read and things like that, I've cited them, but I don't have too many of them. I think there's maybe one or two videos that I've done in the past year or two that have anything that I had needed to kind of cite or to link to or whatever. But I don't have a lot of research book kind of citations. Maybe if there's grad school in my future, perhaps.
But you say you use notebooks to write down a lot of your ideas and stuff.
I do, yeah, which becomes a problem because I like these tiny little notebooks. For anybody in the chat who uses, tiny little notebooks to write down and just chuck in your bag, I do that too, but then I also forget which notebooks I write things in. So I probably have about, quick scan of my apartment, like 4 notebooks that I can see right now. that have this, like one on my nightstand, one on my thing, one that was in my purse today. So I could use a little more organization for myself, but I do like to write down things in little notebooks, and I like to have something with me, not just my phone, because I do use my phone a lot to write down ideas during the day if I have the time. But sometimes it's nice, especially being around kids. I don't want to be on my phone a lot, because I just don't want to set that example that I'm, whether it's research or whatever. If I have ideas, I like to, what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever. Longhand. There's a word I'm looking for, and I'll think of it probably at 2 a.m.
Kind of like analog versus digital kind of thing.
Yes, analog was what I was looking for. Like I like to kind of analog it and handwrite it better than use all of my technology all of the time.
Hey, Beck.
But I think, it works most of the time. Most of the time I'll write something down. Like if I have an idea or I have an idea for a video, I'll write down a paragraph or two and in the notebook. And then when I get home, I'll type it out into Pages or Word or whatever.
That's a really good idea too, because most people say writing it down like puts it more like into your brain, and then you're thinking about it even more when you retype it.
Yeah, there's actually been research studies, speaking of research, about that, and like taking notes in class when you're in a college situation, that taking notes by hand actually fires different neurons in your brain than typing on a computer. So you remember things better because of the actual process of moving your hand across the paper, which is weird and cool.
Yep.
So everybody get little notebooks and write down all your things and then lose them.
Art Explains says that they just use Google Docs for everything, and Alliterative uses the brain for research. First, I read that like as their brain, but then I saw that was capitalized in one word. And if you didn't want to type it all back up, which is still probably a good idea to like get it in your brain and to rehash it, there are a lot of apps you can scan things in. Evernote and I think like Notability, and there's just like a lot of scanner apps that you can use that will scan it in, and then you have nice handwriting. I do not, but if for people like you, it will scan it in and it'll OCR it, so it's then like searchable text and stuff.
Oh, that's nice.
So you can have digital copies of what you wrote, so you can still see your handwriting, but then or any doodles you made or whatever, but you can still search it. Yeah, so it's still searchable if you want to find something later and you don't know where it is.
That's a good idea. I send myself a lot of emails too. I don't know if that's weird or not, but there's a lot of times where like I'll be out, like if I find something on my phone that is a blip that I see on Twitter, I'm like, oh, that would be a good article to link to this video that I'm working on. I'll send it to myself in like a message or an email, and then go back later and look it up or read the article or whatever.
Instead of emailing, there are a lot of things like Pocket, I think Instapaper, OneNote, Evernote, things like that are web clippers. So you can have them, and you can put a little what is
like a tag on it?
Yeah, what is it called when you put it in your browser window? When you a plugin. There's plugins for them. Sorry, it's late. There are plugins you can put into your browser and then just click the button. But the thing I really like about that too is for a lot of them, it will strip away the things on the side. So there are options you can pick. So you can do full page, you can do like full article, or you can do simplified. And simplified will literally just strip it out, all the text pretty much, and maybe some images. So you don't have all that clutter and stuff on the side. And then you can put it into notebooks, you can tag it, and you can highlight it. Mostly Evernote does that. Pocket, Instapaper, things like that will just pull it in for you. And then OneNote kind of does that. So Evernote is if you're the kind of person like me that just like takes all the information and doesn't exactly know where to put it, so you just put tags on it and then you search for it later. OneNote is for people that have like organized brains and work in like folder structure, because it's notebooks really. It's like you have a giant notebook that you have tabs and stuff on the side. So you can put information in there and type and put doodles and stuff. So Those are different things you can use to grab things off the web. And I think most Evernote and OneNote also have the ones where you can scan documents and put them in there. There's just like a lot you can email things in. So like for VidCon, travel documents and stuff, I email them all into Evernote. It's the paid plan though, but I use it all the time. So it's one of the few things that I'll pay a subscription for.
It's super worth it.
Yeah. So you can put it in there, and then you can do offline notebooks. So you always have, like, even if you don't have internet wherever you are.
That's nice.
So that's the kind of stuff that we use. Chat has, the brain is note-taking for research and organizing, thebrain.com.
Also, LiveScribe apparently is a good.
Ooh, yeah, I think I've heard good things about that. You can take notes with LiveScribe,
like with a stylus.
They're gonna have to answer that one. I've
seen people use those things with an iPad or something with a stylus that you can write, and then it transfers it into typed out text, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah. So then you have probably the sensation, like Art Explained says that they the same thing using the handwriting, but then it's in a more searchable and more readable text. That's pretty cool.
Right.
I wish I had this stuff when I was in school.
Right? Man, we're too old. Yeah, it really is better for memory. I'm also like, I think writing down things is not just because, I don't know, because the neurons are firing, but also because I remember things where they are on the page sometimes too. Like, so I can see, oh, I was taking notes about this, and that was the bullet where I wrote this down, and then down here was the bullet where I wrote that down. So it kind of helps me visualize it too.
That's kind of why I also sometimes like actual physical books, because I could remember that too. Like, I remember in my orbital mechanics class, there was like, this is how vivid I can remember things I read. Like, there was a little gray box in the bottom right-hand page that said sun-centric orbits. And I was like, we didn't talk about that class, and skipped it. And then there was a question about that in the test. And I was like, I don't know. But I told them like exactly where in the book it was. I was like, nice. I skipped this part, but.
Can I get a point for that?
I don't think I did. But so sometimes just like you were saying, or I can remember like the pictures and stuff better than if I have like a Kindle or something like that.
Yeah, it's just not the same. I love my Kindle for traveling, but I still mostly only read physical books at home.
Oh,
which also I'm reading a Caitlin Doughty book. P.S. Totally off topic, but it's a great book. Since we were talking about Ask a Mortician like a hangout or two ago, I just started reading her memoir, and it's so good.
Oh, the LiveScribe is actually a pen on a paper, like notebook paper, and it transfers it. So it results in searchable text, but you can also put in doodles and images.
You're blowing my mind right now.
And it goes to Evernote, so she's, playing to my...
playing to everybody's strengths right now.
What we all love. That's so cool.
What? That's so cool. Okay, writing it down in big bold letters in my paper notebook.
I'm going to see this at VidCon, aren't I? You and
you
all the panels.
Yep. Put it in big giant letters. LiveScribe.
And Art Explains was talking about putting things in Google Drive. If you're doing collaborations, I've also seen people do Dropbox Paper. That's another collaborative one that's kind of cool. And Quip, I think, was one. I think that was it. Because sometimes Google Docs don't update as quickly on iOS things because, Google and Apple aren't always friends.
Right, not so much. Not bunk buddies.
So I've heard people do those for collaborative things. And for other writing ones, a new one that people really like is like Bear Notes, and there's like Moleskine stuff that like on apps, not even just pen and paper.
That lousy pen and paper.
Yeah. But I do
useful for anything anymore.
Yeah. But I use Moleskine notebooks just because I get the Evernote ones, so then you get like a subscription and a notebook.
Oh, see, they know.
They do. But I do I like your idea, and I try and carry like a physical notebook around with me a lot too.
It's just something satisfying about writing it down with a pen and paper.
Man. And then they said the brain is like a cross between mind mapping and a database. So you can arrange all your web links and files, but you can also do all sorts of different organizational things with the same data. And that's why I think talking about these things
That sounds like a good jam.
is pretty important, because sorry I didn't talk about mind mapping tools. That's another one that.
No, mind mapping is great. Yeah.
Are there any mind mapping tools that you use?
I'm again just old school, so
Like
I don't use. I literally just get a big piece of paper and just draw it all out. But mind mapping is fabulous. I learned it from a friend a couple years ago, and I'm a huge proponent of that. I'm sure there's apps that are mind mapping apps. The Brain is one of those, and I could probably use that.
I don't use mind mapping. Well, I guess Scapple kind of. It's like a companion thing to Scrivener, but I don't usually typically use them. But I've heard a lot of people like Matt. I can't remember his last name. Matt Polka uses mind maps a lot.
Mind maps are cool. Y'all should use them. I just saw that from Art Explains. It's an interesting, I don't know, I think it's just kind of an interesting thermometer of where your brain is, if that makes sense. So like if you're wherever you are in the space of whatever it is you're thinking about, it's kind of cool to see a physical representation of your stream of consciousness about a thing. That's what I like about it.
And you say you teach your students, and you said someone taught you. So what are like the basics of mind mapping? Like, is there like a plan to it, or is it just like
well,
connect the dots, people?
Yeah, it depends on what your outcome is that you want. So sometimes you can use mind mapping just as like a calm your own brain down technique. So like if you're just having a day where you're not sure where you are and not sure what you're thinking about, you can just start writing, okay, this is what I'm thinking about here, and that connects to this or whatever. But if you want to use it as a kind of an organizational tool, you can set it up like, okay, I need to think about this certain video. So the video title or whatever can go in the middle. And then it's going to need this, it's going to need to have this research. Okay, so research goes over here, and here are the 3 research books that I'm going to check out and read. And I've heard about this article over here about something else. Oh, and this person is a doctor that I know about this, so I'm going to add that over on the research branch. And then I know the photographic assets I'm going to need, so I might want a picture of a kiwi or something, and add that over here. And then in my script, I want to make sure that these lines are hit, so I'm going to add that over here. And so it's kind of like you can just take your brain and go, "Wah," and you can see in front of you, okay, this is what I need for research, this is what I need for this. And a lot of times when you're doing it, it's easier to see the connections between different things. You'll think of new things that like, oh yeah, this is what I need to put also in my research, or this is another thing that could be helpful in this area over here too,
So Art Explains is talking about mind mapping, and it sounds like if you already have like a format, you do an outline, and this is like creating like a web of like, how do these things go together?
Yeah, it's basically just like making a big web brainstorm map.
So it's kind of like we were talking about, like if you have a file folder system or tags, like you're just trying to figure out how things link. And if they have multiple connections, you probably don't want to have like an outline, because then you can't like link them back to multiple things.
Right. Yeah, and then you make little offshoots of like, oh, this will go into this thing over here, This does not work. I'm doing like the YMCA here. I just saw myself in the little bottom screen. It was like, I don't know that this works totally as I'm explaining it, but.
And Mark uses a physical blackboard too. Usually when if I'm going to do a mind map, I like whiteboards or something I can erase pretty easily, because you have no plan of where anything's going.
Right. Yeah, whiteboards are the jam also, and different colors of marker. Oh,
story map. I I should have had a notebook in front of me writing down notes. When you were saying things, all these ideas came to me. I heard some people have notebooks that do like story circle kind of things. So you know, like your plot of your whatever you're doing is supposed to progress and like what happens in um
Mhm.
each of the not was it not
Like you have
stages of
like the beginning and then the climax and then the ending and then you have each different
right, right.
thing.
So each of the
Yeah.
different not chapters, but come on. Theater.
Right. Act.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3.
So you would write out all that stuff, but you would see like, oh man, everything's like clustered over here, but there's like a lull over here. So I don't know if that would help any of us because ours are usually shorter, but if anyone had a longer story kind of video,
Mhm.
I've seen story circle kind of things, story arcs.
That's a
Yes,
good idea. Yeah. Yeah, the story arc.
so
Arc.
yeah, chat's always
I
helping.
just saw that. Good job, chat.
And chat, we are going to talk about more like what we were talking about earlier with Adobe and all that. We'll talk about that when we get into post-production stuff, like the organization and flow through there. When we have more experts in that, probably hopefully people like Miriam or Everythink that like do this professionally and all the time. And they've also had to work with so many people in large corporations. So they know how to template things and how to like comment and move it and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to talk about that kind of organization later. This was just like a general, like everything before you start to go into research and writing mode. I think the next thing that was kind of in the thing is people put in the Slack a bunch of different writing supplementary things that they have. Parts of speech.info, datalyze.com. It detects like your passive voice, and I can put these links back in the Slack if people want. Or I've seen people use Grammarly or Hemingway. So these all look for how your sentence structure is. And I know a lot of us, what you write is different from how you speak, but still it's going to look for like active and passive voice. Or Hemingway is good because it does shorter sentences. So when you're writing, it sounds great, but then when you talk out loud, you probably want shorter sentences, especially if you're trying to do it all in one take and not doing so much of a voiceover, or you realize when you should have pauses and stuff like that. So people in the Slack have found those helpful.
That's good to know. I haven't heard of those.
Hootsuite is yelling at me. It had a little owl pop up.
Oh.
It was
like a howler?
It was like you falling asleep, wake up. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Take care of that owl. I'm just looking at the show notes for a minute. And
still getting over a cold.
Yeah, me too. I had a cold over the weekend. Because it's just that time of year in the Northeast.
I think those were most of the things that I thought off the top of my head for how I do productivity and organization. We're coming up in about an hour. Did you have more stuff? I'm sure we're going to hit on more as we go through the rest of the, how do we make videos?
All the rest of the things. Yeah, I was just looking at the collabs and, using Dropbox and Google Drive and those things if you're doing collaborations with people, which I use, and all of that works, and social media dashboards like Hootsuite and Buffer and TweetDeck, which are all wonderful. If anybody else does any other social media managing and uses other things, I know we already talked about that, or if you use any other drives, or if you actually have thumb drives and you hand them to somebody and they use it for their computer.
Sometimes,
since we're going old school and analog here.
Yeah, we use Google Drive to post videos to send to each other. I don't think it works as well as Dropbox, but we have more storage space in there.
Yeah, Sarah and I have used Google Drive too.
For when you guys do podcasts, how do you, if you have to do audio transfer back and forth, how do you guys do that in the chat?
Yeah, so that's all Google Drive. The things that because Sarah and I have talked about potentially doing podcasty things, so we've done a little bit of that. and have done it all through Google Drive. But yeah, if anybody in the chat does more like audio things and you have other ways of doing it.
And I've heard people record separately, but they'll talk to each other via Skype because that has the least amount of lag. And then I was interviewed on MakerCast, and I can find the email from him if people want it. But he had actually like a plugin that he sent me that goes into, went into my browser, Google browser, and became an audio recorder. And it said like, what mic do you have? And he adjusted like the gain and stuff, and it recorded audio from me and from him, and he's like, just leave it up after we're done, and then it sent both files to him. But it was like
synced at the same time. That's cool.
It was really easy on my part, like as a guest. It was like, open this link and then click what mic you're using.
Right.
So if anyone is doing a podcast with people they interview, it worked pretty well. I told Anais to do it for she interviewed somebody, and I think it went well for her. But if anyone wants that, let me know, and I can send them the link. Yeah, Zencastr. That might have been it. So
I'll write that down too.
I think that's most of what I had. If anyone is interested in Evernote, Scrivener, or Asana, I've done unlisted videos of those to give to people that had questions about that, so I can send those videos to you. I didn't screencast a lot because we didn't want to go too in depth, and also sometimes it has like emails and stuff in it. So if anyone is interested in any of those, I can send you links to those videos if you want to know more about those apps. I do want to know more about this the brain thing. It's going to be really cool. Yes, I said Zencastr has been very helpful for their interviews.
That's good to know.
So I
have to check that out.
A lot of tips and tools for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this has been a great overview of just like, here's all the things.
Yeah, so these were just the things that we could think of. So
right, I mean, not all the things, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, and the chat has so many more. And please, anyone that's watching this later, please put things in the comments. And I'll try and take the things from the chat, and maybe the show notes are already in the productivity thing, but not with links. If I have time this week, I'll add links to those, and everything that was mentioned in the chat, I'll copy and paste it. And we're just going to try and get like a list of resources together for everyone. So this was kind of the kickstart that forward. So
yeah, and you never know what's going to work for you. So I like having all of the things kind of written out, and we can try all of them and see which one works best.
Well, chat, do you guys have any more to say? Any other tips? And our next hangout will be, I know Mondays aren't good for you, but the next one that comes up is supposed to be on a Monday. So our next hangout will be on Monday, December 4th, and that is going to be a research one with Go Verb Renown. Anyone that wants to be on these hangouts, just let us know if you think you're really good at one of these things, or you have a lot of questions about one of these things. Please let us know. I do not want to be the only one on these. I like when other people come on with different points of view, and like you came on and told us more resources than I would know. So let's see.
Everyone says, "Yay, research!" I love it.
Yeah, he's an expert in research.
Be helpful.
So it's going to be great.
And thanks for all the tips to the chat. Thanks for the brain and all the Zencastr and all that stuff, because I'm going to look all of that up. So thank you all.
And LiveScribe.
Yes, and LiveScribe that I have in caps in my notebook.
But thank you guys so much. It's been an hour now, so I think we're going to wrap this up. So thanks, everybody.
Have a good night, everybody.